So we're out for a walk, sort of late afternoon, the first week of December, and it's a pretty grey, chilly, damp, dull day. And this weather definitely puts me in the mood for going home, having a nice bowl of stew to warm up. So let's do that. So last week I made a recipe for sausage stew, and it was made from cheap and cheerful ingredients, and some of you in the comments said, wow, you shouldn't have used those sausages, they are a bit cheap and nasty. And you know what, you're right. So this week we're going to do it right. So today I've got some nice Cumberland sausages. These are really good quality sausages, nice sort of bit of meatiness to them. It's more or less the same ingredients as we did last week. I'm going to put a few more special things in. I'm going to put some paprika in and a bit of tomato puree and maybe a few other things. Instead of the pasta, I'm going to put in some of these fine egg noodles actually. So almost what we're making today is kind of a minestrone. Okay, good soup or stew starts with good stock. So whenever we have anything that makes bones, so a roast dinner, or maybe in this case we've got the Chinese takeaway where we had some ribs and there's some chicken drumsticks we had there, I save the bones, put them in the freezer, and I save them for when we make stock. So today we're going to make a stock of pork and chicken. So I've got my chicken bones and pork bones in there. And to that I'm going to add an onion, a stick of celery, 3 bay leaves, some marjoram, rosemary, and thyme. I think I had a bit of sage in there as well. Yeah, a bit of sage as well. So then we're just going to top that off with hot water, and I'm going to leave that in the slow cooker to cook all day until we're ready to make the soup. Right, second verse, same as the first. We're going to put a little bit of olive oil in the pan, and we're going to fry off the sausages. So again, for these sausages I'm going to take the skins off because otherwise they just go kind of all weird and stringy in the stew. Not everybody wants to bother doing that. Personally, I prefer to take the skins off, so that's what we're going to do. So just going to tear those sausages into little pieces, like little meatballs really. I don't have to be quite so delicate this time because these sausages are a bit more meaty and they're going to hold together a bit better. Also, I'm using Cumberland sausages, which are a little bit more seasoned than your regular sausage, so that's going to give us some nice extra flavour that's going to come out into our stew. So this is cost a little bit more. This pack of sausages cost more than all of the ingredients for last week's stew. However, we're still talking about making a family meal which will feed at least 4 people easily for less than £5. So this is not expensive food, really. That's if you think about if you were going to get a takeaway, well, you could feed your family for a week on meals like this for the price of one takeaway. So this is still budget conscious food. Now they have stuck to the pan a little bit, so I'm just going to turn the heat down and let those cook gently there in the pan while we go and get the vegetables ready. Just starting to take a little bit of colour there on one side, so we're going to continue cooking those. And into the pan we've got our chopped celery, chopped red pepper this time, and onion. And we're just going to fry that off together. So I'll get the heat up to sort of medium heat now, because all of this has to caramelise and soften. Sausages have to brown off before we go on to the next bit. So the sausages are taking on a nice bit of colour now. The onions are very slightly caramelising. And the good thing with using better sausages is we can be a little bit more lively with the way we treat it in the pan. So at this point, I'm going to fry it a bit longer, but at this point we're going to put in a few mushrooms. And a teaspoonful of sweet paprika. Now we could use smoked paprika here and we'd get a really intense flavour. Now this paprika does need a little bit of frying off just to cook it, otherwise it can have quite a harsh raw taste. So we're just going to gently fry off that paprika now. That's all looking good, and if we take it any further without liquid in there, we're going to start burning that paprika on the bottom of the pan. So now is the time to add our other vegetables and stock. So I've got my carrots cut slightly smaller than my potatoes again, and that's all just going to go in the top there. So that all just goes in like that, and then we've got some mushroom stock that I made from my foraged dried mushrooms. So I've just strained out the mushrooms and we're going to put the stock in there, except the very last little bit, which might contain a little bit of grit, so we'll just save that back. Now I've taken the pieces of mushroom out because I will chop them and add them in as well. And then we've got this chicken and pork stock that we made today in the slow cooker. So I'm going to top that off with a couple of ladles of that. And if it needs topping up, I'm going to top it up with more stock. And as it cooks, the stock will reduce down and that will intensify the flavour. So I'm just going to give it a little jiggle just to mix everything up and just to loosen some of those flavours off the bottom of the pan. And then we're just going to bring it up to a simmer and let it cook for 25 minutes or so. While it's cooking, I'm just going to put a little squirt of tomato puree in there as well, just for another bit of flavour. Now at this point you might be thinking, that's completely different to what we made last week, but it really isn't actually. This is just the same basic ingredients with a few different flavours and just a few little tweaks and changes. And those pieces of rehydrated dried mushroom that were making my mushroom stock, chopped up nice and fine, they're going to go in there as well. Now I haven't put the pasta in yet because I'm going to use those thread noodles and they need very little cooking, so they're going to go in maybe about 5 to 10 minutes from the end. We're maybe 5 to 10 minutes away from the end of cooking now, so time to add the noodles. So I'm going to take, I don't know, just a quantity of these fine egg noodles. I'm going to break them up into little pieces and scatter them over the top, because we're going to be eating this with spoons, so we want shortish pieces of noodle in there. Now these noodles happen to add a bit of thickening to the broth, which is probably just what we want. There we go. So let's just get those stirred in and see if we need maybe to add a little bit more liquid. I think we might just go with that. Okay, so there it is, sausage stew Mark II. Now, same basic ingredients and concept, but just a few different flavour elements, and look how different it is. So let's serve some of this up now. And those thin noodles have thickened up this broth and given it some real substance. So let's have a little taste. Wow. Totally different, even though it's got the same ingredients. How about that? And do you know what? It is worth buying these more expensive sausages. These are a lot more meaty, a lot more satisfying to eat. So I'm just going to serve this with some lovely rye bread, and what more could you want? You know, a little bit of black pepper on there maybe, and that's a really enjoyable meal. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.